Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hackers Hangout, episode number 25. Yeah, I believe it's 25. This is the Google Hangout where we discuss technology, news, events, developments, policy, that kind of thing. Mostly from the point of view of people who have either lived in the Caribbean, living in the Caribbean, or have some kind of concern or care for what goes on in the Caribbean. I am the son of Murray. With me, I have too many people to remember all of their names. I will let you guys. Since we have some relatively fresh faces, we could probably do a quick introduction. Like I said, I'm the son of Murray. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. I am a web developer slash software developer. Um, I help out with Ubuntu, TT, and anybody else who's trying to do anything community related. We have Kester Henry in the chat. I would say that for him, he doesn't have his microphone up. He's a good friend of mine, Stanford. You could probably introduce yourself to the rest of the guys.
Stanford T. Mings Jr., Chief Technology Officer slash technologist of VI Technical Services, technology consulting company in the Virgin Islands, United States, Virgin Islands, St. Thomas specifically. Been doing technology ever since I connected a battery and blew out a LED. So, yeah.
That's good. Probably. So we could go from Stanford right on to Shannon and down to Calvin. Then.
Okay. Hello, good night, everybody. My name is Shannon Clark. I'm an electrical engineer, software developer, currently co-founder of MediReview, a mobile health app that helps doctors manage patients suffering from chronic conditions. Hailing from Barbados.
Oh yeah, I'm from Antigua, by the way of the Virgin Islands.
All right, want me to go next?
Nissan, you go next, man. You got me like super.
Okay, my name is Nissan Dukran. I'm a technology consultant, I guess, no? Work with several startups in Trinidad, in the States, in the US, um, in the UK as well. So I have a bit of experience there. I also worked with Microsoft for some time. Have a bit of experience in the Microsoft platforms. Although my background is open source, but I love these little get-togethers to kind of shoot the breeze with other technologists and chat about everything from the small stuff to the big stuff to the little things in between my ideas. Always trying to keep a local perspective when I can do.
Anybody else?
Hey, good night, everyone. I'm Small Reed from Barbados. I'm a web designer and web developer. I'm also the second co-founder of MediReview, working along with Shannon.
Kevin, you go next.
I didn't hear any. I didn't hear the last one very well. Did you say go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, my name is Calvin Harrigan. I am originally from the Virgin Islands. I am currently working as a software developer at Panasonic, and I've been in industry for some time. Originally started off in electronics, then I moved to industrial controls, eventually software, and that's where I am now. I'm doing embedded software. I've used a lot. I'm proficient in many languages. I've used a lot of different platforms from Windows to QNX to Linux, so even raw to the metal programming in assembly and plethora of other languages. I still do a lot of hardware work and my current position allows me the option to do hardware design and write software for said designs. So you can say I've gotten to a point where I've gotten synergy, to use a overused
Come good.
marketing term. That's about it.
That's sorry, Calvin, but that's not like something from Dilbert there, the last part about synergy.
I know, that's why I call it an overused marketing term.
Yeah.
Well,
That's good.
sometimes you luck out and you get to do something where, two of your interests coincide and they pay you for it.
Yeah, that's a good position to be in. Um, Let me introduce Roy Chen as well because I'm not too sure if he has a microphone attached. Kofi, remember to mute your mic while you type, please. You type with such conviction. Okay, Roy says he can't find a mic. I met Roy in person at the Hack for Good. He was one of the guys that came up for the Hack for Good event that we hosted. He was also a participant in the startup weekend. I think that was like the first one they had here. He has a number of technology companies, and I think it's two. He's in the technology field doing security related work. Um, yeah, I think we're all in good company here. We have I think everybody here could say probably really is into the technology, so we really shouldn't have any problem with the flow of the conversation because I'm sure you guys all have your opinions on how the industry is moving along, whether you think it's going in a good place or a bad place. So Shannon, like I said, you could probably give us your thoughts on this whole thing with governments and the people having the power to change, how things are done, and especially what role technologists could play in that.
Okay. But let me just first start by saying that you really need to accept and really recognize what a government is and is not. And one thing that government is not, in my own opinion, is like a provider of everything. And kind of the politicians have tried to bury that into our minds and our psyche for various different reasons. So we usually end up saying things like government's not doing enough or done with government or whatnot. So when I put up the status there, you can't fix government without fixing citizenship. What I'm really saying is that we are government, we are the private sector, and those persons that we elect, whether or not the system is perfect, ends up being a representation of the citizenship. Right? So if they're really not acting in the best interests of the people, or they're not responding to the voices of the people, it's really showing something that's actually within the actual nation itself, and something deeper that needs to be addressed. Now, as developers, I think that what we really need to focus on, what we can focus on, is really looking at the examples from civic hacking and basically seeing how can we actually empower people to start creating the change that we need to see without the without the involvement of centralized government necessarily. Because really and truly, the only thing that government really does provide is that centralized resources. And nowadays, we can create those resources ourselves. We can create that platform. So if we actually, within our own citizenship, can create this whole spirit of, rather than sitting down and waiting for elections to push for things, we actually say, okay, there's a problem here. How can we start to fix it? Then I think we're going to see a lot more progress. For instance, in Barbados, we've always had issues regarding transportation and traffic, etc. And it's almost the same complaints, even from 1975, when they call in programs. No lie. And nothing's going to change. People are still saying, government should do this, government should do that. But what if we actually had programs like carpooling or something that could actually report bad drivers, and people actually acted on that. People actually say, I'm not going to catch that person's vehicle. So things like that. I mean, fortunately, in Trinidad, you have a great transportation system, in my own opinion. Not great traffic, but you
Wow.
have a pretty good maxi system.
Wow, you get into some bacchanal there, boy.
No
I'll get
problem,
my
no
mic.
problem. But that's actually different perspectives right there,
Yeah.
because when I'm over there, I like the fact that I can be there and I know a bus can, well, Maxi can pass by me, and I know that 10, 15 minutes, another one's going to pass by again. In Barbados, that's not the case, even though we're much smaller, you know.
Well,
Um,
a good point. It's not that we have a bad, unnecessarily bad transportation system, but I think what Trinidad suffers from is like too much cars and too much people headed in the same direction. So it's kind of more like a capacity issue, in my opinion.
Fair enough, but like I saw the guys mobility, and I think there's a taxis app there as well. But where are those guys and their effort, and how can their own solutions actually benefit Trinidad from, like, just from people power beyond the business model, whatever it may be or whatnot? I mean, we've seen how huge Waze became just off of people power, just off of crowdsourcing data. But if you actually look at it, like, okay, we actually want to just solve a problem, those startup platforms, we as developers can create that. We can, I mean, in the past, people have spoken about open data. But in my opinion, it's not just open data, it's very open platforms.
Well, listen, I'm not exactly familiar with what's happening in Trinidad that applies to transportation. I know here in the Virgin Islands, we also have a problem when it comes to having too many cars, too many vehicles. And the problem, the result of that, I talked to a friend of mine, and we speculated in conclusion that the problem in the fact that there wasn't any proper public transportation. And with no proper public transportation, people resort to the next best thing, which is they went and got a car. So you may have a household with three or four, literally 3 or 4 cars. Uh, I think when it comes to the government and what what we as technologists can do, I think we have to first define exactly what the problem is and the root problem of what it is. It's one thing to sit there and say we can go and create an app to get people to drive a lot better, but that's only going to, in my opinion, anger people a bit. I mean, just to for the record, I'm actually considering building a system like that. Specifically, it's going to be a dashboard cam, and I'll just take pictures of people whenever they act up and then post it to online. But that's
How very Russian of you.
yeah, exactly.
But I actually like that, it might not come out to be a solution, just like you're saying, right? But the whole point is, where do we get started? You know, far too often I shouldn't say we, but the government funded programs with the overseas consultants and whatnot, they get lost in the process and try to make the process perfect in order to find out, okay, what is the one solution that will solve all needs? And that's ridiculous. That could never happen. Definitely not over a 3 to 6 month consultation. But if people just adopt this attitude where they're going to take action, legal action, and reasonable action, then eventually they will be able to identify, maybe not on the first one, maybe not even on the 10th try, we will identify problems and then start to meeting those solutions. Well, start matching the problems with solutions. Look at what's happening overseas. I went to Chicago and I love what you can see from Chicago. Just look at open city Chicago, and just something as basic as cleaning the snow off of the sidewalks and alerting people as to when the snow blower or whatnot is going to come around to their neighborhood. Open platform, and then they just build a whole bunch of APIs on top of that. So obviously it's a government program. The government sends around that snow blower, or snow cleaner, and whatnot, and they just have an API there. It's GPS tracked and whatnot, and people just build mobile apps off of that. They say, hey, claim my place here next, report on this. In Jamaica, there was the pothole location app. Unfortunately, it never launched, right? But that's a great example of something that could really be using public data and not only assisting, but hopefully assisting government services become more efficient, but also using people to crowdsource data so you can say, hey, these are certain problems that we need fixed. Rather than waiting on government to get their act together, we can start reporting it. We can start trying to actually see, hey, how can we solve it? Or how can we direct these services to be more efficient?
Okay. But
Yeah, that's not just a problem. That's a very common problem, I guess, in this hemisphere. Because from what I've seen, say in Europe or even the Far East, Japan, China, and so forth, they have all these public transit systems, usually trains, and they tend to be pretty well developed and ran. I mean, even here in the States, we have so minimal train service that it's surprising. It is a big country, and I understand that. But I mean, even in a metro area, like say even here in Atlanta, where we have 13 counties that comprises the metro area. I mean, we have very minimal train service, and I think this area would be prime for such an investment. But you know,
But yeah, but I don't know, man. It's just like it'd be crazy if you had to catch the train. You never know when the train was coming, right?
but that's the thing. Somehow the Europeans and the Asians have figured out how to keep a consistent, reliable, predictable schedule.
I'll tell you how they do that. They do that two ways. One, and these two things are totally antithetical of what a lot of Americans interested in. One, high taxes, and two, um, they carry it all the way up to the line of an iron grip of the infrastructure. They're not exactly dictatorship, but it's almost to that point. Uh, and yeah, that's basically how they do it. I mean, like in Singapore, I was there a couple months ago. Their system is so ingrained that it's no longer there's no difference. There's no specific line between the government and the people. Everything is one. In fact, that's what they say. They say we're Singapore. We're one. We're Singaporean, and that's something that I think is going to
that's what
be a
the
tough sell. It's going to be a tough sell in the Western world.
that
Well,
is that.
most of Europe is considered Western, and they figured out how to do it.
I said Western because I didn't want to specify America.
Oh, don't.
But that's just my thing. It's one, high taxes, and two, they put a lot of money. They put that money towards government. That is something uh, that I see lacking a lot of places. Um, interesting enough, I one note. I don't think it's fair to say America in general, because there are some places in America where they have put a lot of time and effort into their infrastructure. San Francisco is one of those areas um, where transportation is rock solid. Even New York City, Manhattan, transportation, I mean, their underground trail system, their underground rail system is very. I mean, there's a lot of traffic in New York, but when you look at the
Sorry,
multi,
excuse me, guys. I'll be back in a bit.
Yeah,
okay,
sure, no problem.
when you look at the amount of people that are living in Manhattan, it is amazing that they're still able to move things around. They're able to function. And a large part of that, in my opinion, is the public transportation that they have there.
Mm.
Yeah, I've been on the subways in New York. It's a little scary, but okay.
Mm.
So
But that's just my opinion.
yeah, so I gotta go just now. I just wanted to bring up, if you guys didn't mind the topic, like Apple Beats and trying to acquire Beats. Well, actually, they are acquiring it. Before I go and just give you a perspective on it. Well, at least hear yours first, and then I'll share a little bit of perspective of what I think is happening here. So,
I
you
mean,
want to get into that?
Apple's acquisition.
Yeah, they're acquiring Beats
The
Audio.
thing that bugs me the most about Beats in general is the
Mhm.
fact that, we have these $300 headphones that we plug into MP3 players and cell phones to listen to music. I was like, these are terrible sources for music to listen through a $300 set of headphones.
How
I
much do you pay
mean,
for your sneakers?
say again?
How much do you pay for your sneakers?
Sneakers?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I own a pair. I think the last pair of sneakers I bought was some Pumas. And unlike most guys, I don't go and pick out the one I want. I go and tell them, what do you have in a 15? And then I buy what they offer me.
Right, but it's the same principle. A person was willing to pay $150 for a Nikes, when
No, no,
yeah,
I'm not blaming the companies by any means.
yeah,
This is squarely on the shoulders of the people who buy them. Like, you're gonna buy. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with paying $300 for a set of headphones if you're an audiophile and you have the equipment to support it. But my point was that you're gonna spend this kind of money on headphones and then you go plug it in your cell phone or your
Well,
iPod.
I think I mentioned this last hangout, but I think the acquisition, the main thing was really for the audio streaming service, is where Apple trying to get into.
What do you mean streaming, like Pandora?
yeah. So Beats has a service. So that's kind of my point. If you look at the past, Apple has ruled music, online digital music, for the last several years, but the sales of records from their store is declining. Whereas their competing services like Spotify, Pandora, and more recently Google Music and Xbox Music that provide audio services for music, at a premium cost. I think most of them are around $10 a month. Apple tried the same thing with, I think it's iTunes Radio, which is similar to Spotify, and that will play songs in a certain genre. You don't pick the actual song, but you can pick, like, you can search for the artist and try and find the music related to it. But there hasn't been real uptake to it, and they're at risk, similar to how, Facebook was at risk of missing the next wave. This is why they acquired Instagram. They're at risk of missing the next wave in the music revolution, which is, you know, folks don't necessarily want to keep buying audio, MP3s consistently, but they're willing to pay for someone to provide music to them because it's around the same level that they're used to. Um, they will still buy audio because if they're a fanboy, they're a fanboy. But this is where Apple is reaching now. Because what's significant is that, um, instead of acquiring, just a service, they've also acquired a hardware manufacturer. So, it kind of lines up with where Apple usually goes, uh, in terms of they try to control both hardware and software platform. So it'd be interesting if there's some sort of Beats optimized version later down the road for people with Beats headwear. But again, it's a big price tag, which is not their usual forte. I think it's a sign that Apple is realizing that they have the risk of losing relevance when it comes to their key asset, which is the music industry and, iTunes.
Yeah,
I have a slightly more extreme position on all of this. I mean everything you said included, but at sometimes it just feels like these big technology companies. Okay, where's this noise coming from?
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it just feels like these big technology companies, like they just make these acquisitions just kind of to remain in the news, like the Facebook, the Google, the well, not so much Microsoft, because Microsoft makes a lot of acquisitions, but I don't think that it gets as much news hype other than the Nokia bid. But sometimes it just feels like they just spend all this money, like just to make the news. I mean, who knows? It could have some analyst sitting down and saying, "Hey, listen, when people say that your company making these big acquisitions in the news, our statistics show that sales they go straight through the roof, or you get increased goodwill and some kind of thing." I mean,
I mean, I've been
And
on the other side, so I can kind of tell you what I know, and not because I've been in meetings and I'm disclosing anything, but just because I've met the teams in Redmond and like I understand how they think because you hear them enough times, you kind of get where their logic is, and also if you're doing enough business, you understand strategy. There are several people like Forrester, Gardner, a few other guys who publish research dependent on strong field knowledge as well as research to see what's the next set of mega trends, where your company, what's going to go up in IT, where it's going to be. Companies like Microsoft, Apple, Google, they all listen to these reports because these are scientifically done studies. It's not someone saying, yeah, I think it's this. Sometimes they do take an educated guess, but honestly, the data supports the move they're taking, which is why you find so many companies sort of moving towards the same space. So, Apple is realizing that their baby, I mean, they make the same way Google makes so much money off of search ads or targeted ads, Apple makes that amount in iPod sales and iTunes store sales. So they're looking at the future of music as their industry. And the industry trend is saying, hey, what, people aren't buying records anymore, they're not buying CDs, they're buying digital music. Now they're saying, well, they're not really buying digital music in quantities like they used to because everyone's pretty much on a budget, but they're willing to listen to more music very frequently. Even if it's not exactly what they want, they're willing to be a Radiohead and listen to a specific genre or subtopic or several artists in the region of where they're looking to listen to without actually owning the music.
Well, and don't forget to include it has advertising, which is another revenue stream.
Right. So, but the problem is Apple kind of came late to this party because they were always about the music and buying and giving licensing fees back to artists because they were able to command this. Because Spotify has increased in popularity and Pandora has increased in popularity, they have the potential to lose this grip that they've had to command the price from music labels. So I understand what you're saying in terms of like they're not doing acquisitions just for soup. For example, I'll give you another one, like more personal. Microsoft. Microsoft bought Skype because they believe that voice and video streaming, video conferencing
Conferencing.
was a big thing. They were willing to pay
okay.
because they had the faces, they had the reach, and they started. And you can see that now because Skype is very tightly integrated into Office through links and all that other stuff. They acquired Yammer because they knew that the next big trend in social networks would be enterprise social networks. And you can see now Yammer is very tightly integrated into Office 365.
Was that Yam?
Yammer,
Why?
Yammer.
Why?
It's an enterprise social network.
I'm not familiar with it either.
Okay,
Yeah, a little bit of it.
yeah, as a consumer, you probably won't be, but if you're in a business, um, it's the old take on Yammer was that the millennials that are coming out of school now, they communicate differently from us. They don't use email. Email is too slow. They use things like Facebook and Twitter and chats to communicate and get business done. So what Yammer does is sort of provides this very protected space that has a Facebook-like interface in terms of the experience of being able to have news feeds and messages, and it allows us what you call serendipitous connectivity between people in
So what happened to SharePoint? I thought that's what
organizations.
SharePoint was doing.
SharePoint and Yammer work together with each other. So SharePoint had a social component in it. It's still there, but they brought in Yammer as well. So it's a little, they're merging the technology. So there's a time to use Office 365, and there's a time for SharePoint, and there's time for Yammer. And they're still merging everything together, and it's actually coming together quite well because I was using it up to when I left Microsoft like last month. And honestly, a lot of my work is now still accessible, not because I sent emails out, but because I had Yammer groups that were active and threading. And so when if someone comes on now to Microsoft and they want to join a project I was with, they just have to join the group and they can see the whole stream of everything that was happening um, during that project, which is better than email because you don't get an email message and you don't miss emails and you can't. Sometimes someone forget to send something to you, or you can't find this attachment, or you have a ton of emails and you can't actually dig into it. So it helps. And then you have to also understand that we're a little bit older, and it's hard to say the young folks. I'm looking at the faces, and I mean, I'm sure we're all still young, but the 18, 19-year-old coming out is more Facebook aware than ever. They're Instagram aware. They want to move you want them to work for you, you have to give them tools that work how they think and how they've been growing up thinking. So, Yammer provides this kind of opportunity for them to use this as another tool to communicate and get things done within a social environment, but protected within your company's boundaries for data.
I follow your reasoning with the acquisition. That little bit of information where you mentioned where they acquired Beats for the streaming service makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's like Microsoft with Skype. They had Yammer already, but they just didn't have the eyeballs, and they didn't
right.
have the consumer network part of it. Apple has their own iTunes Radio, but Beats has the brand because of the hardware. So the best hardware for headphones with a service, and also I think Beats has connections in the industry itself, the music industry. So they can still maintain that sort of command over pricing that maybe of Spotify or Pandora that didn't come from industry back people may not have or may have struggled to build over time.
Well, that segues well into the acquisition of DirecTV from
Well,
AT&T.
Calvin, hold on there. I just want to welcome Steve Spence to the Hangout. He's been
And also Stanford. Don't forget Kurt Belgrave as well.
yeah.
Yo,
Hey Steve, how you doing, man?
Oh, okay, man.
You came in a good conversation, man. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, saying you came in a good conversation.
Yeah. I was learning some things. I was learning some things.
Well,
I've used Yammer, and thing. So I'm kind of familiar with it. I must say I'm not comfortable with it, but I can understand the social network component of it. I guess I'm in a group of people who use it, but don't quite appreciate it over here.
well, one note before you continue, Steven, just give a little intro, let folks know what you do and where you're from, what you do, so everybody has some context to work with.
Yeah, I'm a computer engineer. I design network in Trinidad and Tobago. I work also with Carbonald. We do workshops with people who run ISPs, how to manage the network and how to manage the internet. So we do network design for internet infrastructure for ISPs and telephone operators. And also we operate a business with general consulting in IT.
Thanks.
That's it in a nutshell.
All right. I think first the next topic was AT&T and DirecTV.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, Kevin, you were saying, sorry to interrupt.
Well, after Nissan was talking about the acquisition of Beats by Apple, the little bit of information he made me aware of was the fact that they wanted a streaming service, which makes sense. So I'm trying to figure out what is it that AT&T is looking to get from the acquisition of DirecTV, because I don't know if you know or not, AT&T already has a cable TV type service.
Do they have
Almost like
satellites?
you're buying your competitor, which happens a lot. But I mean, if you run a cable network and then you buy a satellite network, you're gonna have almost conflicting priorities as to which one you want to prioritize.
So, quick question: AT&T runs, for me, in my mind, I just know them for their cellular service. Do they have cable networks as well, like AT&T branded?
Yeah, they call it AT&T Uverse,
Okay.
and it's you can look it up online, but it provides all the same features as a cable network, like say Comcast.
Mm-hmm.
And the technology used to bring it to you is a little different. It's an IP-based delivery system. So it's more of data-centric than, say, Comcast, which, while it's the digital feed, it's still broadcast on channels.
Yeah, it uses. I think Comcast still use the traditional
Backbone infrastructure, whatever you want to call
cable
it.
TV over fiber, but I think they use fiber instead of coax. But essentially, it's analog over fiber optics Comcast. Universe is more IP based.
Right, it's definitely IP based.
Instead of IP based, is you buy a box, the Universe box, and you get internet plus the on demand content.
That's how they transmit the actual channels as well.
Yeah, yeah, I've used it. Yeah, they do on demand and channel as well because I used it before.
Right.
So I'm trying to figure out how they plan to integrate that with the broadcast of the satellite TV,
I
given
was
that the
yeah.
limitations inherent to satellite broadcast.
I would suspect that is a move to increase their number one the amount of people that can receive content from them, and number two, DirecTV have a lot more a lot of big contracts with content providers like HBO and those guys. So you're actually buying the content providers as well, the contracts as well. So because I always thought that their UCAS AT&T selection was a little bit limited, which might be a restriction of the license content they can actually get. So they probably get two things. They get the content that DirecTV already has, and also there are areas where IP doesn't have. Satellite TV have go to areas that don't have any immediate IP access.
Yeah. I
They
was just
can,
looking
they can buy
at
that.
a quick look. I don't have much penetration, and it could be the same, similar to it look like how Microsoft acquired Skype. They just want to create, jump their numbers so they can reach this sort of critical mass where they can do more. Aside from the lucrative like contracts they have for content, sometimes people just need to get eyeballs and they can't get organic growth, so they acquire a company that has the growth they want, so they can start taking leaps in another direction that kind of aligns with the company that they've acquired. But they just never had the critical mass to like execute that and make sense.
Yeah, I don't think Universal have always been a kind of small player. I must admit, it is. So with DirecTV, I think they actually broaden their appeal, broaden their market, and they really become a true player in the content delivery market. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because not many people know about Uverse. Eh?
I didn't until just now, and then I looked it up and I was like, oh, okay, I understand. So it's one of those like trend that has been mobile with their quadruple play.
Mm.
I mean, they don't bundle it very well to make sense to purchase it traditionally. But like
Yeah.
Lil Red Online said that basically people who have Uverse took it as part of a bundle package. So it's not like necessarily they wanted that as the best thing. It just kind of made sense. So if you don't love a company or brand, you really can't grow it. So I mean, people love DirecTV, the ones who have it. In the sense that they like to have their pay-per-views, they like to have their behind it
Football.
service. Yeah. I don't know anyone in China who loves Everflow or DirecTV. They just think everything is too expensive for cable. But
Yeah, that is,
Most people prefer DirecTV because of that football, basically football fans.
sports.
DirecTV.
Well, when you say football, do you mean American football or world?
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. My
World Cup.
apologies. My apologies. I mean real football, UEFA Champions League,
Okay.
real
and the
football.
World Cup.
Real football.
Well, that's what I consider real football. American football is the other
Yeah.
football.
That doesn't mean
So I guess we can go into debate about why do they call American football football if they're always running with the ball in their hands.
Oh, that's an old joke.
I think it's a historical. It's actually historical. Actually, there was a time when football that replaced vertical soccer now was all one sport. You can both hold the ball and kick the ball, and that
Yeah.
was called football. And when they split, the people who hold the ball still call their game football, and the football what we call football was called soccer. It's really historical. Actually, the original game football actually you could hold the ball.
I'll look at
So
that
where
one.
does rugby fit in?
And
I was
rugby,
just
when
thinking,
they branch out, rugby became the other branch, and football that is played only the feet became soccer. Actually, it's not really the game that was called soccer. It was the club system that originally managed football in UK was called soccer, and so that got associated with the sport. While rugby was the other branch, and rugby kind of morphed into American football, Australian rugby, all kind of things, morph into different things. But that actually get labeled football actually. And America chose to keep the name football.
Hmm.
So it's more historical than anything else. Eh?
What I found interesting was when I went to visit my family in Canada, Canadian American football uh, is different from American football. The rules are a little bit different. This field is different. Aside, American football is a point where it has variations of it as well.
Yeah, almost every continent have a variation. UK had a variation of rugby. Australia have a different variation of it. And America different variation. It never got really standardized as football. Our football did.
That's why science and technology is the one unifier. Is one TCP stack and one method of communicating across everybody else.
Yeah, but no,
That's
you
why
have
we're bringing it back to technology.
when you say you're going to use a computer, you can now say, is your computer a PC, a Mac, a Chrome device? Is it an Android? Is it there's a,
It's
it's
a
not
Turing machine.
a Turing machine.
Listen, I had an interesting revelation. I realized that there's going to be a point when the need for a computer by the average person is not going to be the need for actual computer, keyboard, monitor is going to go away once these mobile phones start increasing in their processing power, and the other end, and when people's needs are able to be reduced to an app. I think the only people that
I think that's the most important thing. Whether app can truly replace the thing that you do at a PC.
yeah, because I'm looking around. I think we're the groups here, the folks here who are effectively developers or infrastructure guys, we're the ones that are going to continue to have need for keyboard, monitor, uh,
Like, for
keyboard, monitor.
example, can you truly replace a keyboard? Really?
Repeat that.
Can you truly replace a keyboard? Is there anything out there now that can replace a keyboard?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that can replace it, but I don't think we're just there yet. A brain interface.
Oh boy, you jumped out you scared a little bit.
I
Hey,
think that's
Well, not trying to steal a conversation or anything, but I've been recently, how can I put it nicely? I've recently been
Killing
punished
humans.
by being assigned a Windows 8 computer, and yeah, that's not gonna work. The
What's
thing
wrong with
about
the
touch
computer?
screens and all the other alternative interfaces, I don't think that's quite there yet. And like Steve said, there's not much that can be done to replace the keyboard. But I got off track. Let me back up a little bit. My original point was that there's going to be a segment of the computer market that will be geared towards the Joe Six Pack, who will have just need an app, whether to go on
we're
Facebook,
just
do their
consumers.
pictures, whatever. And there's going to be the developer class or the content provider group who actually need computers to actually do work. And I think one of the flubs that Microsoft made with Windows 8, and unfortunately Server 2008 12, was the fact that they morphed this user consumer interface onto a system without leaving a producer interface. And you still need that keyboard, mouse, and a usable interface to produce the content that the people on the other side is going to use. That's the point I was trying to make.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a reason the iPad uh, took off so much other than the fact that it was a nice device. The number of content creators is drastically smaller than the number of content consumers. And the iPad device made a very good content consumer device.
Right.
But when it came to creating content, they still had a Mac because they had those producers that let's say 5% of the community who generated content who needed something to actually generate it with. Windows 8, I've been using Windows 8 since it was the first release, before public, it was preview release or something like that. And one of the biggest things I've heard from folks is that it's the unfamiliarity to a Windows 7 user who has gotten used to a keyboard and mouse. And I think the shock of a touchable device or a touchscreen interface on a device that could not support touchscreen, it disenchanted many people because the intuitiveness wasn't there, even though the compatibility was. I think they're moving towards realizing, well, there are folks who are not in their 20s who may be very used to keyboard and mouse, and we need to support them for a little bit longer until they get comfortable using the touch interface.
But
My
these two groups are still on one side, which are is the consumer side, right?
Yeah, so these guys are on the consumer side, but for creators like you and me, we do need a keyboard and mouse for now, because natural user interfaces like voice and gestures, and even the brain thing haven't matured to a point where they're able to produce content as quickly as a keyboard and mouse has for us.
Exactly, the speed.
Yeah, but on the other hand, the new developers and the new IT administrators coming out there, Windows 2012 server, that touch interface has worked a lot for them because
You think so?
they're graphically driven a lot more. They don't know
You
about
think so?
PowerShell.
You think so? Yeah, you think so? I don't think so. Any good Windows administrator need a keyboard and a mouse, eh?
Right.
And if you use PowerShell, and if
But-
you need PowerShell, you have to use a keyboard.
Right, but you have to understand the world is changing for us as IT administrators, where we're not going to be managing physical boxes anymore down to the core OS level, where we have to manage like server connections independently and have to use a graphical interface. Most of the jobs in the future for the IT administrator are going to be simple web-based interfaces to services provided by a cloud service provider.
Yeah,
And
but how do you automate bulk? How do you automate things like administrator? General job is a general job automate. But you want to update the attribute and bunch of user that you have to update them. How do you do that with a user interface? Don't you have to write a script or
The
something?
question is, would that task be something in a cloud-driven world where you're not needing to take care of that because that's the part of your service provided?
Okay, because Microsoft pushing a different, even though they're pushing this visual interface, even if you have a cloud-based box, they still emphasize that you know PowerShell quite well. Because even though your box is no longer on your premises anymore, to administrate it efficiently and effectively, they say upfront that you need to know PowerShell. You can't rely on the interface at all. They're
Right.
saying, but if you're in the cloud or other service provider, they'll provide your interface, your resources. However, as the administrator of your thing, you will need to automate it, and that's part of your job. I don't see that going away. Whether it's cloud or local, I don't see that going away very soon.
Look at it this way. There may be one person now in 10 who does that as part of their job because the other 9 are doing the simple tasks. In the world of cloud, it's going to be 1 in 1,000 to maybe 1 in 10,000 persons doing that. If that's your job now, then make sure you're not 1 in 10,000. But for the other 9,999 folks, they may need to use a console once in a while. I'm not saying it's something that should be absent from any IT administrator's forte. They need to know it. But to execute tasks sufficiently for the job at hand, it may be simple like a web interface, which works fine in a touch-driven device which doesn't have a keyboard and mouse. Because
I don't mind the interface at all. I don't mind that at all. For simple, easy changes or something, that a web interface is actually superior. However, for big enterprise administrators, a console is almost a daily occurrence.
We're not disagreeing. What I'm saying is the number of enterprise administrators that will be needed in the next 10 years is going to be drastically reduced. So unless you're going to be one of, so before maybe 1 in 100 persons or maybe 1 in 10 persons, in the future it's going to be 1 in several thousand persons is going to have that actual role.
You mean, when you say the role, you're talking about a guy who actually runs the hardware and software that the cloud lives in?
Yeah, because it's going to be such massive scale that you don't need that resource in your company. Maybe the service provider needs that, and that's where you're going to get your employment. But as a field as a subfield of computer technology, which is IT administrators, your job is going to be less about going into the nuts and bolts of a server's configuration and more about figuring out for your company how you're going to leverage the resources you have available to make more money for them. and to
Yeah,
make things.
I understand. That's one of the advantages of the cloud. I agree with it totally. That's
Yeah,
one of the if you're choosing to outsource your administration of your company to a service provider, yes, that's actually true.
yeah.
Okay.
And what I'm saying is, it's going to be less economic sense to not choose that option as
Yeah,
time goes
yeah,
by.
yeah.
Agreed.
So, however, if you're in a company like a multinational company
Hmm.
that outsourced it, like Exchange Server, give an example, Exchange Server.
Hmm.
They wouldn't necessarily want to actually outsource the actual administration, even though the server itself is no longer on premises. They will still want to have the administrator be able to create users, create bulk users, change attributes, and not necessarily submit that request to a service provider. So I don't see big enterprises, even though the resource is no longer local, outsourcing the actual direct administration at that thing. At that thing. It's
Right.
not going away. So for small companies, I say yes because they didn't have it anyway.
Hmm.
Yeah, for small companies that they didn't have that skills anyway. So most of the people who do advanced scripting and administration are actually in larger companies. And the reason why they have them there because they want a trusted resource in house. That's it. They will outsource the infrastructure. The servers will no longer be local. But administration, if a customer say, hey, I need to create 300 users, then that will not necessarily want that to be done by the provider. They will
But
say, hey, get that done.
why wouldn't that be a self-service option for the manager who needs to create that team of 300 persons to say, okay, send me a list with
Mm.
your, the necessary credentials to an app, like an upload a file. I mean, there are reasons. I understand what you're saying. What I'm
Mm.
saying is, you're, you're valuing a resource in a way that doesn't necessarily mean value to a company in
Okay.
5 or 6 years. And I'm not saying you don't do a good, a necessary job. What I'm saying is a company is going to look back at the IT administrator and say, your value is not in producing those 300 users with attributes and loading up. We have a script that can do that. We have a service provider. We can give them the names and they can do it. Your value is
Yeah.
understanding our infrastructure well enough and
Mm.
our business to say, hey, we're missing this component. This is where we need to start moving. We
Okay.
need to bring in an additional layer of security because the latest technology guidelines have said, we're open to this vulnerability if we don't have this in our network, and we need to put that in place. So I need to look for service providers, and that's where the leverage is. It's not going to be like I can sit down with a computer and enter 300 names and or run a script or write the script. All those are going to be automated tasks. The IT administrator's role is going to change to a point where instead of doing firefighting mode or new request
That one I
mode,
agree with. I agree. I definitely agree with the firefighting thing.
yeah,
That's going to be a thing in the past, and you're more business savvy
yeah.
in terms of actually IT will become an actual resource to making money in a company rather
Well,
than a cost center.
right. So that's something that everybody talks about and nobody seems to get. IT is, if it's looked at as a cost center, it will be. But an IT of the future of any major company is a competitive advantage. It's a differentiator, and how well you run that resource shows. Perfect example: Amazon never started off as an IT company, but they realized they were doing something the best of everyone, so they twisted the game and started offering it as a service. And now they're one of the strongest cloud providers out there. But they started off as an online retail shop. Nike produces this fit device, and they have a whole team of developers now. But their core thing was merchandise for sportswear. Companies are going to look more and more at you and say, hey, are you providing a value that I can then use as a competitive advantage later on?
Yeah, I see that. That's where IT needs to go actually.
Yeah, but that's a good discussion we're
I
having.
agree with
I
that.
like it.
I agree
Yeah,
with that.
yeah. I
Um,
like it. I like your topic though. It's very, very good. It's a very meaty topic.
yeah.
One way it sounds like that means that we're going to have a society whereby the companies are going to basically start putting in their hiring processes. Um, I don't want to say script writers, but for developers who are able to write software that meet the business needs uh, at just about every layer. Well, I shouldn't say every layer of the OSI level, but I would say from the application down to
Layer
uh,
three.
right? So that's the other side of the coin. So I was talking about IT administrators, which are the guys who ensure the nuts and bolts and the systems stay running, and that may require some automation, but development is not
Ellie,
the core.
come
You
on.
know, developers, they're going to need developers, but not the developers like what you see now, where you have system integrators, where you purchase a piece of software and you bring it in and you have to build something custom for it. That's going to happen still, but what you're going to find more of is they're going to keep their core development processes either with one partner or in-house, um, and more look towards saying that same thing. What can you build that will leverage the things that I have purchased and generate some sort of competitive advantage? For example, a data analytics tool for financial services that we provide, which may be something that 10 of our competitors provide, but we don't have it as a service. But we build something in-house that works for us, and we think we can leverage it in such a way because we've invested in the development practices, we can turn this into a service.
Onisan, that makes a lot of sense, but let's not forget that this all depends on the type of companies because, you know, I could see the younger companies doing stuff like that. You know, I'm not talking about startups here. I mean, like companies are probably, on they still on the growth curve and that kind of thing. But at the same time, you'll have a lot of dinosaur companies there that large and the money coming in and politics might be involved as well and they
Yeah,
ain't
but
gonna do
one
nothing.
of the biggest shocks to our local tech ecosystem and the local trend that is going to be the demise of these companies because they're not
Yeah,
changing. They're still thinking they can get this. And the sad thing is, government is the biggest provider of services or the biggest consumer of these services, so they're driven by this. So it's going to be a lot
yeah,
slower than you expect, but you're going to see smaller companies. Like I see this app coming out called First. It's advertised all over, and I looked at it. They're building something interesting there. I haven't used the app too closely, but they're trying to put together something there. The companies I know about that are working in healthcare technology outside the US, the customers are in Trinidad. They're building some good processes there, some good, strong developers in there who can then,
yeah.
I know of at least two of them who have left and started their own company, and they're in turn providing good services as well.
I hope that happens. I really hope that sort of dynamic environment starts to come out in Trinidad. Because it was, frankly, we kind of static here. Kind of stagnating right now.
I mean, yeah, the problem we have is, someone was saying earlier, government shouldn't be the provider of everything. But in Trinidad, people have spoiled the government, and government have spoiled the people to say that government provides everything. And it's not to say there aren't people suffering and there are people in need, but it it discourages the entrepreneur who has what is it? Necessity breeds innovation. Is that it? The
Yeah,
term I can't.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yes, necessity is the mother of invention. We don't have to suffer so much that we have to invent something that we can then, made
The problem is that the government does is the main source of income for a lot of people. They have big contracts with big companies that don't have to do anything for that contract really, or to maintain a contract. The government doesn't support small business really in a tangible way.
yeah.
When a tender goes out, small businesses will always suffer, and the big
Yeah,
boys will
well,
always get it that way.
well, regarding that though, the government position on small businesses is like, hey, don't look for the government for business. Go out and private sector support the private sector, and that's exactly what needs to happen. I mean, the government. When you see the thing about saying the government means a lot of different things to different people, right? Some people it's a political thing. Some people is the whole structure of how a country is actually governed. And you look at it, there have been numerous things to support small business, but that's not the only problem we have. Where we have a problem trying to be able is actually implementing things and measuring the success and if it's meeting its targets, and then going back to the game plan, seeing if it's working. Most of the time, the initiatives they more just kind of like, yeah, we do this, talk done, and that's it. And that's that just that there. And actually, that actually transcends down to the private sector because some of the larger companies, that exactly the approach they take to their business. They would do something like they would bring about, let's say, online banking. Online banking would be crap. It will be a horrible user experience. It will be unencrypted for years, but they would still put up, we have online banking, we did it, talk done. So it's a lot of different issues that we have locally to solve. Is not one or two. It's a whole heap of stuff that needs to be tackled before that environment becomes dynamic. And like what Shannon was talking about, um,
That's not me.
no, that's Calvin, but just was my train of thought. But basically, what I would say the people have to do, yeah, the people have to do more. But I would be more second. I would say like definitely the people in the technology industry, if you want to see the technology industry itself be more dynamic and be more rewarding and that kind of thing, there needs to be more collaboration and less, you know, less running. Like what Stanford mentioned last week, there needs to be less like startup ideas that just based on like hype. It needs to be stuff that are really deep and solve difficult problems. Which, if you look at a lot of these journalists, they're writing about, we're not solving hard problems down here. A lot of these business people talking about that down here. Like, we're not trying to solve hard problems with technology. We going after
As
trivial
speaking
stuff.
about hard problems,
The shallow stuff.
yeah, speaking of hard problems, anybody talking about query code rush, which is sometime in the next few months, and I see that their application deadline is tomorrow. But apparently, the aim of the apps you propose is to solve these socio-economic problems of local and regional impact.
I
Anyone?
think Telioso or Kariri, you said. Kariri.
Query. I think query is running that one.
You know, the ironic thing about that, this is the second time I saw it come around, but each time I saw about it, I think it's from Shannon and Barbados. I'm aware of it, because he usually posts the links.
Yeah, here's the link I saw. So I was reading up on it because apparently, yeah, Microsoft was sponsoring it. So I heard about it before, but I was just thinking, this is one of those perfect opportunities where folks who, you can put money where your mouth is basically, and say, hey, I want to help and build an app. And apparently, there's training as well for folks who are doing Windows or Windows 8 apps. I know the guy who's going to do the training, and he's pretty good at what he does. Um, I don't know. Maybe I'll enter it. I don't know if they'll let me enter it though, because I used to work there. But we'll see.
Yeah, that might be kind of iffy.
Yeah. But if anyone listens to this tomorrow, you have till the end of the day to enter. So it doesn't take much. It looks like you just have to fill out a form, saying what your app will be, and it's very easy to think of an app. Just look around, sure enough. There's a ton of things that you can probably do a little something with technology to help. From telling people when potholes are not on the street and haven't been fixed in so long, to that thing where they do on TV where they put a picture up and they say what's the problem at the moment. That can be an app. That's not a hard app to build, but
Okay, I just kind of want to be like real honest about this because it's something that's been bugging me for a long while.
hmm.
No disrespect to your Microsoft affiliations, Nathan. But no, I ought to be real there about it because I see what Microsoft has been doing, and I think it's pretty lame at this point because they have been there. I know Microsoft is seeing that there's a lot of potential down here with regards to application development and that kind of thing, and that theme is coming up. But I mean, really, all these contests where, well, obviously Microsoft being a sponsor, you'd expect that they'll put their technologies on the forefront. But I think in the best interest of the development of the country, it's best if we not, how to put it, it'll be better if less application developers absorbed into the Microsoft world and embrace the open side of things because the barrier with the Microsoft world is always going to be the cost. And the problem we have is that people will people tend to build these applications not with solving a problem in mind, but trying to make money and become millionaires and that kind of thing. And that's, I mean, if
But
you
you don't
go,
have to Microsoft to go in with that mentality. People go in
was
try,
that?
people go in trying to build Android and iPhone apps with the same mentality of trying to make
Yeah,
money.
yeah, yeah. I agree 100%, and that's why I'm quite fed up of this mobile app rush because here's my thing. I am not deep into the mobile thing, but I understand it has its place. But what I look at is how the web came to when the web, how the web evolved in Trinidad and Tobago still is yet to utilize the web productively. And I say that yes, I have a web background and I'm biased towards web technologies, but the thing is, before these apps came about, and these apps are still in more or less entertainment land, a lot of them, the web provides us with opportunities to share information. And look at the state level, the government embraces their websites and the whole idea of a website to share and disseminate information, but they're not doing it right. They put up laws as PDF files, but they're not even like files they could scan and search through. It's images.
Like open government, the open government initiative, right? Where the data has been access.
Say that again, Steve, I hear you clearly.
There's an initiative called the Open Government Initiative, in which things like what you speak about, like the data being in PDF format, instead they have the format in a what we call a computer readable format, which application developers that you can actually access. It's a movement that's going around the world right now, but we have not done it very well in the Caribbean.
Yeah, and I've seen links again, I think from Shannon and those guys again. I think actually I saw those links when they had like the open government data there and that kind of thing, which is good. But the problem is that we in Trinidad like hype, and the Microsoft is fueling and feeding off of that hype with these coding yeah, it's a hype to make money thing. They're feeding off the hype with these competitions. And yeah,
the open source thing is that the open source stuff where you don't pay for the technology, you have to actually spend time building out that technology. And so that's the kind of trade-off you have with open source. That open source is in a raw format, and you have to spend a lot more time to bring whatever product and function to market. No,
I disagree with that entirely, because if you look at a lot of Microsoft products, people spend a lot of time just trying to figure out what the hell to do because there's so much features. What I'm saying is open source technologies have come to a state that there are so many people who come from companies like Apple, Google, who understand the importance of user friendliness and this kind of thing, and they get into the open source communities, depending on the technologies that you pick. I mean, look at Bootstrap. I mean, Bootstrap is the #1 CSS framework right now. You have mobile responsive sites. You could use, Bootstrap, Angular. You can make a web app for mobile phones. You could even use stuff like the Adobe thing, Phone Gap, to turn it into to access native features. Open source has come a long way. I mean, if it's still operating, if obviously you operate mostly like with the routers, like Kester would know, like, you're basically in a terminal holding. You don't see the polished part of it, but when you come up,
I was in that realm. I'm in the Linux part of the realm where you do it's still a lot of work to get the routers and switches up to working specs.
Let me just. I'll give you a little while because I just wanted to hear your point straight with the open source. You're getting that Microsoft and I'm getting that you think Microsoft and open source are two different sides of a coin, and it's not. Microsoft really does embrace a lot of open source now. If you look, the president of Apache Software Foundation works for Microsoft Open Technologies. Microsoft Open Technologies is a subsidiary of Microsoft that is purposed with integrating closer with open source technologies and supports a lot of open source projects. An example is, have you seen Apache Cordova, I think is the name of it, which lets you build applications for mobile platforms independent of language. So it will build using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So it will build Windows 8 apps as well as Android, as well as iOS, as well as BlackBerry. And Microsoft contributes to that by giving it the quota that allows it to compile to Windows 8 and Windows 8.1. If Google came to this country and they sponsored a competition and they said, well, you'll have to build it on Android, I don't see a problem with that because they're not charging me for Android. The same way, the competitions that they're pushing, most times there is an option to get trial versions of the software, if not the full version, because things like DreamSpark, which gives students in most universities free access to all the Microsoft compiling tools, is there. There's programs like BizSpark, which if you decide you want to launch a business off of it, Microsoft gives you software
Yeah,
free
they
for
stopped
years.
correction. They stopped the business back. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they shut down.
Okay, so let me ask you a question then, because first of all, Nissan is not like Microsoft versus open source. I'm saying I'm talking about in terms of developing the tech scene locally. Yeah, Microsoft has a big open source division, but the end result of that is that their investment in open source, including like Azure and their support for Linux and a whole bunch of other stuff, it basically gets you more and more into their ecosystem. And a problem, especially small businesses have down here, and that's why they resort to piracy, is they get embedded in the Microsoft ecosystem. You know, you'll get your trial version, you get accustomed to the technology, but as you use more and more, they figure out, hey, wait, we can't be paying all this money. We gonna go broke if we go with that. So they either crap out and fight it out, or they try to pay it and go broke, or they basically pirate the software and that kind of thing.
What companies do you know that has done this? If you're a company
There are a
and
lot
you
of small businesses down here that still pirate Microsoft
right, they
software.
still have, but
Yeah,
where have they gone on the path where they have purposely built on an ecosystem and the expense of the ecosystem has gotten to the point where it's beyond the, you know, the ability to sell the product? Is that because they are selling a poor product, or because the price of the software has increased, or they, I mean,
No,
there's a
they,
lot
they,
of
they
factors. That's a
usually need
very
more.
open-ended kind of thing you're saying there,
No,
and
I'm
I think
telling
it's
you, that it happens. I don't even have to. There are guys here who could
I
explain
must
that.
agree with I must agree that yes, a lot of small business cannot actually afford Microsoft products. The truth is that they pirate it. The business model they have and their profitability, the Microsoft products are expensive, and they do pirate it. Yeah, it is a factor there.
And Nissan, when it comes to development, look at like Visual Studio and the licensing fee for Visual Studio. You can get into Visual Studio, you could get a trial version, whether you
you
could
get a
get
free version.
the
Express is free.
trial. Right, but those things have limitations. What happens when you you decide to go forward with your product? You might be making much money, but you really like Visual Studio, but there are 10 of you on the team and you need to be using the same IDE and that kind of thing. What's gonna happen when you can't afford that license? It creates problems when you get into this ecosystem.
So what happens when you go into Android's ecosystem and you have to publish to an app store, and
For
you're only getting
Android?
back 40% of your revenue? What happens when
Wait,
you have to
Android is
start?
what come up?
Yeah, if you use an Android, you have to use what? Eclipse. But to get the proper support off of Eclipse, like the development tools, your regression tooling,
No,
your
Nissan, don't
server.
get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not pro Android or anything either. I
No,
am.
no, I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying, I'm comparing it because that's the only one I kind of know. Because Apple
Yeah.
is closed. Apple is closed as well. So there's what remains is what, BlackBerry and Android. And honestly,
Let's say
it depends
Android.
on what your approach is to selling software.
Yeah, well, I must agree. I must agree that I don't really trust Microsoft. I've used it reluctantly because I don't know if it's that's the best path for us to embrace technology. Going to Microsoft route, it is the easiest path up front. To be frank, is it if we want to get stuff off and running as quickly as possible. The
Hmm.
Microsoft route is the quickest way to get everything off the ground. What they almost actually provide is that it does require more skills, and I think that may be a good process for the country to go through. Okay,
Right.
that guys
Right.
actually
Well,
start to
right.
learn the technology better. Open source offer you that opportunity. So
Yeah.
maybe we could, to be frank, if we want to get apps and application off the ground, the Microsoft route, whether you're pirate or not, is the
But
easiest and fastest way to
But
get
the
up.
thing
one
is,
more thing,
but the thing
you know,
is,
you can build
what
apps
Steve
in
is talking
HTML.
about there is the business, but that's not what I'm talking about. The businesses that use the software, that's one aspect. But what I'm talking about is the path for developing the industry, the developer side of the industry. You
Right.
want
So
you want developers
Microsoft,
to
yeah,
embrace
you
open
use
source based.
HTML. You can use HTML5, JavaScript, and CSS to build Microsoft apps on Windows 8 and Windows 8.1 on the phone as well.
Yeah,
That's
no,
what they do.
but that's for their phone. How many of us have a Microsoft phone, or how many of us can
But
afford a Microsoft phone?
but you understand that when you build stuff in HTML5, JavaScript, and CSS, there's this native portability to other platforms by
Have
the
you
fact that you
ever
built.
wait?
Not quite
Guy,
there
have
yet.
you
Not
have
quite there yet.
that's what they promise you. But if you have ever built an HTML and a heavy one page
Yeah,
single
not
page app,
quite
you
there yet.
know
The promise is not yet
you're
there.
gonna end up with cookies.
Use an application. There's this tool they brought out called Project Sienna. It will it's a WYSIWYG tool for building an app. It writes straight HTML5, JavaScript, and CSS. I have taken apps from this, brought it into Visual Studio, and published it as a web application afterwards. And I'm
Yeah, but
making
what do these apps do? Do they just pull and push data, or do they do anything
they
complex?
can
This is
they
why I get at the
do
hard to solve
the
problems.
target for it is line of business applications, so single purpose applications. But because it's HTML5, JavaScript, and CSS, if it starts getting more complex, you can pull it out and bring it
Hello?
into your favorite ID and then be able,
Yes.
you know, I mean, Visual Studio works well,
Right.
and then start building more
Hello?
complexity in it because the code is all there.
Hello?
But
Yeah.
you get the point I'm
Right.
making with regards to
Hello,
development.
Steve.
I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is a fallacy to think that because it's one company's product over another, the cost is so prohibitive. You have to look at what they're offering. Everybody
Okay.
charges something somewhere. Not
You
necessarily
picking up?
where in the value chain you're going to pay for it. In
Okay.
Microsoft's case, they're moving
Yes,
towards
absolutely.
services, so you're probably going to pay for more of their service
Give
side
me
stuff.
5 minutes and I'll come online.
The
Okay.
IDE has some cost in it, so you're going to probably have to pay for that right away. But there's
Some
free versions
cost.
and there's options like the DreamSpark program, BizSpark, etc.
See,
Um,
guys, sorry to interrupt, but I think what we have here is one of the many discussions that has occurred. I would say literally across countries, across companies, and it's a matter of different philosophies as to where you want the development process to take place and at what cost and who pays it. With the open source movement, one reason I like the open source movement, and when I say open source movement, I'm talking Linux, uh, even the Android development platform, and certain other tools, is because it kind of moves the development to the closer to the consumer. With Microsoft, in my opinion, uh, it requires a certain investment, and that investment you will get back once you publish the data and everything. But if we're in the Caribbean, because of the fact, in my opinion, because we're in the Caribbean, we don't have a lot of the capital. A lot of the small businesses, they don't have the capital. They can't afford to make the investment into a lot of Microsoft products. And for the record, I shouldn't even say Microsoft, because we also have other manufacturers such as uh, Oracle, Adobe, uh, what else is there? Autodesk. A lot of these big software companies, they're 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 doing the all of it. They expect people to pay to be able to build on their platforms, and that's okay if you're a big company, if you're a major bank or a government agency that can put the resources in, then yes, you can go and develop for a lot of those big players. The open source movement, that it's the entry into that is a lot less than if you go the big big the big Microsofts, the Oracles and whatnot. And I think that's I think that's what Lasana is trying to the point Lasana is trying to make. In addition to Lasana, if I understand from your point, it's a matter of you got to pay to play. Uh, I, correct me if I'm right or wrong with that.
all right. I mean,
Well, okay, sorry, go on.
so in some way, everybody has to pay to play. The question is where in the value chain you're paying. I mean, with Android, I mean, Android is free and open source, but the Google's Play Store is not. The services that you utilize from Google, most of them are, but if you're starting to like their App Engine service is not free. You pay to consume that. You know, again, I think the tendency will be towards, they're
Wait,
going
App
to be
Engine?
Google App Engine. That's their platform for their cloud platform.
Well, it's kind of free. I'm not too sure of the implementation details, but remember they're trying to port it to JBoss with Red Hat. and also when you develop on the app engine, you get like a SDK that mimics the some of the features of the app engine. I'm pretty sure it's probably
Right. So same thing like
similar
Windows
to in the
Azure.
background.
Yeah, same thing like Windows Azure. You can get a free tier for 30 days. You have a certain number of services you can use for that 30 days.
No, I mean you can download something to your
And you
machine
can
to
download
mimic.
something that will simulate the Azure environment for compute and storage as well. So you can do local debugging before you upload and test on their servers.
Well,
Yeah.
I hate to interject because I hadn't said much, but
Mhm.
let's not forget that the main reason for Google, Microsoft, Oracle, or any of these businesses to do what they do is to turn a profit. You know, Microsoft charges up front, Google gets you on the tail end, but
Mhm.
never forget that their only purpose is to make a profit. So I guess what I'm getting at is that it might be a moot argument
Yep.
arguing where the money goes. The fact is that both are there trying to get money. They just go about different ways of doing so.
Yeah.
Right, all
My,
right,
my perspective
and
is Microsoft is actually spending money in Trinidad with real people who work at Microsoft to actually do stuff with local folks. I don't see any of the other guys doing that.
well, this is the thing, Nissan. What I'm saying though is it doesn't matter if it's Microsoft, Google could come down here and run their own contest and that kind of thing, but I bet you they would put
And
more
see the
emphasis on
difference.
open source.
You see the
But
difference will be, in my opinion, the
it,
difference will be that
just
when
talk
Google
over
does
each
that
other,
content,
Let me
so
cross stream.
what I'm saying is that with regards to developing the local industry, we need to kind of not get ushered into any specific platform. People need to understand the concept of freedom and being able to do whatever you want with the technology without having to pay some overlord, some
see,
pimp
look,
to use it. That's
China,
what we need. That's what we
see,
need to get
China,
down here to develop the industry.
China, see, Lassa, that's the thing that we have to also address. The thing is that we in the Caribbean, to a lot of the major players, we're more consumers than actual developers. Uh, you don't see, we okay, there's not a lot of developers in the Caribbean. And because there's not a lot of that, a lot of the businesses, they would rather go and pay have to have these various or pirate to have a lot of these tools such as Microsoft Office, Microsoft Outlook, Oracle database. They rather pay to have that those big companies provide them with these services because there's not uh, yeah, I'm serious, Kirsten. There's not. Okay, tell you what, there are developers, but there's not a developing ecosystem. An ecosystem whereby we can develop systems here locally based on infrastructure that is built here locally. Uh, how can I put it? There's we try to develop apps and everything for various applications, various various platforms. But what's to stop us from developing our own platform, our own Trinidad app store, or our own version of Android? Uh,
Scale.
that
Scale. It's just the law of large numbers. You have to have a critical mass of something to start. Someone said we don't have a lot of developers, and someone disagreed. I can tell you firsthand, I've done hiring in the region.
we have an
We have a
echo.
lot of developers,
We
but we
have an
don't have.
echo. We have an echo. Try it again.
Hi, you hearing me now?
Okay, that's better. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So I was saying I've done hiring in the region since 2006. We have a lot of developers. We don't have many great developers. And what you need is a critical mass of great developers to be able to generate an ecosystem. And part of the problem with that is not just the university, it's also the quality of solutions we have to build in the region. We aren't challenging our developers to try and think beyond, they're not getting the mentorship they need to raise their level of development. I was developing since I was like 17, 18, and before Y2K was an issue. And I only cut my chops on real, proper, good practices for development in 2006 when I actually worked internationally. And I learned from international architects the best practices there, and I kept those lessons with me. I kept improving and improving, and I went to other markets. I can learn that in Trinidad, and that's the problem because most it's very very rare unless you work on like an open source project, which is a very good effort for anybody to do, and you learn from other developers in the world. You're not going to learn those lessons here, and until we have that critical mass of great developers building and churning on apps, we won't get that ecosystem going.
And I think, and it's for that reasons why we have to lean towards either one of these many existing platforms, be it Google, be it Microsoft, be it Apple. We have to accept the fact that we don't have that ecosystem, so we have to pick one of them. And the thing is that there's no one better than the other. Some guys, their minds are wired to work with Microsoft products. Some guys are better comfortable with Apple. Some
I don't
guys are,
agree. I disagree.
yeah, man. That's how it is, man. There's no one thing for anybody. Believe me.
I
I could
work with
sit
it
down.
all.
I
I
have
have
some.
Apple and Google and Microsoft in my office right now, and I work with all of them. And it's
No,
not a matter of the brand; it's the
no,
first
no, 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 no,
principles.
no, no. Don't get me wrong. Don't get
You
me wrong. I'm
see,
not saying that you can't run all of them. I'm just
Yeah,
simply saying that there's
yeah.
some guys who are diehard. They refuse to touch anything with with Google, and there's some guys who refuse to touch anything with Apple, and then there's those guys who refuse to touch anything with Microsoft.
Fanboys.
But they, but
and those
right,
are
but
the
then
bad examples. Honestly, if you're like
No,
that, that's your opinion. But honestly, in the world of IT, you can't be so myopic to stick to a platform where
they
you're not willing to accept that something else may have a feature or something to work with you.
here's my thing though. Here's my thing though, guys. Yeah, you need a platform, but what I'm trying to say is if you want anything to develop, we need to be able to say we have our own platform. And why I say that is because open source software allows us the opportunity to do that. Because my point of view doesn't come strictly from the tech and the Apple and Google and kind of thing. I talking about this from a economical or rather a business point of view. In Trinidad and Tobago, we seriously have a lot of issues right now with manufacturing to the point that a lot of companies that would provide certain things like something as simple as plastic bottles that they may have got from other companies and locally and resale, they importing it. That's a problem.
That's so
Where,
true.
where this country is heading is a serious problem. I mean,
Okay,
Skybox, Amazon,
that's
things
kind
have
of
never been easier.
yeah.
see,
That's what
that's
I'm trying to get away from.
Yeah.
Us importing and depending on foreign states for nearly everything. Because, I mean, even food, because I tend to be in the farmer's market a lot. And I go there and I would ask about certain things, and people would tell me, like, hey, we don't grow this down here again. They're importing this, they're bringing this down. It's not a nice situation. If you really look around you, you'd realize that we're becoming this kind of like this heavy services state that imports everything, kind of similar to where America has found itself, where they basically a lot of stuff is produced in the eastern part of the world and they just buy and they borrow from other countries to buy from other countries. That kind
Right.
of thing is not a good place. We may have a lot of money right now, but that's not necessarily going to lead to a sustainable future.
Well,
I
what
agree with that, but that's I think very separate. Like the agricultural sector is something I know about because one of my best friends is in that sector. The whole growing of crops and that's part of certain when you refuse to innovate, you get out innovated. And if our farmers locally refuse to start thinking about modern methods and modern technologies for generating crops at a competitive price, to the point where the price of bringing it in is actually cheaper, then economics is going to dictate that they're going to bring it in because they can't produce the volumes that are needed to satisfy local demand. And I agree,
That's
we
true.
have American tastes in some of the things. We don't appreciate our local fruits. I don't know many of our local fruits other than the normal mango and pomsite and all these other little things that I like. But that's separate and apart from the fact that when you're thinking about technology, you have to decide where in the value chain of technology you can fall and what you're going to play in. If you want to build a platform, fine. That took money, that took investment, that took time. It also took a maturity of the environment. A lot of great developers in the same space thinking about the same kind of problem and building solutions and generating an industry of solution providers. We don't even have that. So how can we build? How can we say we wanna run and we can't even crawl yet?
and that's why I
By,
think
by
that's why
coming to Hackers Hangout and
that's why
discussing these issues.
that's why I
I
suggest
love
that
this
we start.
discussion. It's a great discussion. I'm sorry I have to go now though. I know it's a little late.
All right, well, listen, we appreciate you.
It's an
Yes,
echo again.
it's a person.
Yeah, but my thing.
Okay, Gank, answer. I think I mean I have feedback.
I
Next time
think
you
he
should
need
leave
to
a note.
need to mute his mic.
Yeah,
Someone isn't wearing headphones.
my thing right now is that we gotta start working on the infrastructure, and not necessarily platform, but the infrastructure in the Caribbean. Make sure it's rock solid, and I'm talking all the way from the from
Trinidad to
layer
Cuba.
from layer one all the way up. Yes, if take a page out of Cuba and and we start up. It may not happen in our lifetime, but I think that's the way to start. I mean, we continue using a lot of
See,
these
now we
other.
don't send the agents here. You also said Cuba.
No, I just said we have to build the infrastructure from Trinidad up to Cuba, or just
Oh,
geographically.
yes.
My whole thing is, I don't think you need to build the infrastructure as your first priority. I think you need to build the people. Until the people in our region who are considering themselves IT professionals or future developers can get access to the resources and experience to build the experience needed to become great developers, we're going to be stuck as being mediocre developers building small problems and thinking we're really great. And that is a big problem I also find in Trinidad, where we think we've reached a peak, and it's really that we've reached the peak of our locals industry, like all the things that are presented to us locally.
You're
I would,
talking
yeah,
big fish in small pond.
exactly,
Fat fish in a small pond.
exactly. You know, I would love to see something incentivized or some programs that say, okay, here, what we have a developer program where folks from here can go and work with folks in like Sweden or or the UK, or one of these developer tech hubs. It doesn't have to be Silicon Valley. It can be London. It can be New York. It can be Australia. You know, get them there for like 6 to 12 months working with startups. Then bring back that same culture back to Trinidad.
I
I
Get
think we have a
started.
chicken egg problem where we're trying to get to one place, but we need to do something first, and
yeah.
but this something needs to happen before we get someplace. I mean,
Not
I
to
know.
mention we need
I
income.
mean, my approach has been here. What if I had to? I advise, I guide folks who are now coming off university. And the first thing I say is here, what if you really want to become a great developer in this field, get out of Trinidad. Go work somewhere else for a while. Come back here afterwards and teach someone else what you learned, because that's the only way it's gonna move forward.
I disagree. I
Did it actually come back, Nissan? That's what I want to know.
They don't normally come back.
I'm here. I don't know if you I don't know if you want to consider me a great developer, but I mean I'm
you
here.
came back, right?
no.
You bring some
me
more of those
Everybody
guys
else has
back.
contributed.
And
let
gals.
me elaborate. Let me elaborate. I not to say I disagree, as in I agree with respect that it's good to go out there, get some experience, and then come back. The problem that I see with that is that uh, you're only going to go out there, get a snapshot of what's happening out there. When you come back here, you're maybe at the top of the game, but you're not. You're at the top of the game at that snapshot. Uh, my belief, what I would like to see happen, and I've taken the bull by the horn, is that we start at the layer one, where we start showing people how to actually use and build things. Uh, I've always told I'm a big advocate for the hackerspace, the maker community, where you can
Oh yeah, I
utilize.
forgot about that. We should really organize that.
Yeah, that is where I think we should start. At layer one,
Mm.
understanding how electronics work, and then
Good
build
God.
up, because
Are you
it's
who's part of the maker community here?
Well, I'm trying to. Well, I don't know anybody inside there, but I'm trying to think. I would love to get into form of maker community here.
I subscribe to the
Okay.
YouTube page.
So I didn't share this. I'm a Kickstarter backer for the Maker movie, which you may see coming out soon,
Mhm.
because they did their world premiere last week. So I'm a very strong believer in the Maker movement, but I just haven't seen much activity in it in
Well,
Trinidad.
because we have to create one if we're gonna see one, eh?
Well, what would be your interest in having the movie actually screened in Trinidad as sort of a precursor to see who was interested in seeing it?
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it.
Well, I'm making requests, but I just wanted to know if there was interest because I want to
I'm
see it.
interested in it because I'm doing some stuff with Adreno and all the different boards right now.
Okay.
Did someone say Arduino?
Adreno, yeah, I
yeah,
have an Adreno box
that's
here.
what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm doing some stuff with it as well. So but I because I want to make a little drone. That's my dream project that I'm making right now. I'm at the robot stage right now.
Yeah, I haven't had time to open the box yet. I opened the box and I started reading through the manual. I was like, yeah, I need an introduction to electronics because I've never done anything with electronics before.
With me,
There's a big book, I think, on it, son.
I'm a bucket on it. So
There's a book on O'Reilly. I think they have a meek book, like a real basic.
I have like 3 books, and I just sat down and I was like, I know I did computer science and a computer engineering because I wasn't really into the electronics thing.
I do electrical engineering, so my background is in that field. So
yeah, there's simpler devices, like there's this one called Makey, which is kind of really simple. You just plug in stuff together. Then there's like .NET Gadgeteer, which is sort of like you can use.
I ever get down to the solid.
Yeah, then there's Raspberry Pi, which isn't really a device. It's more of like just a box.
No, I use the Raspberry Pi. That's what the robot is based on. I'm basing the robot around the Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few things out there. We can talk more about it as another topic.
Wait, hold on. Hold on, guys. Let me suggest something though. Hackers Hangout doesn't have to be the only hangout that takes place. You guys could, drop out do a hangout once in a while and theme it around these kind of things and see if we get other people who are interested in that, because there are guys who probably won't come here because they just think it's all software kind of stuff or something like that. And pull it out. That's how we go and grow this whole community thing,
Maybe it will.
The maker stuff does straddle both world hardware and software. You do have to know to write some software as well.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean it's a possible idea. We'll see.
Actually, I was really wanting to actually partner with a developer more. I will do the hardware part, and I will want somebody who like programming to do the programming part. That's the idea I had in mind. I'll do the soldering, I'll do the electronics, and
But the soldering is all that stuff is stuff I want to learn. This is my relaxation. This is like some people go play cricket and football. I'll break open a board and learn some electronics.
Yeah. So I wanted to deal with somebody who had a fairly strong developer component, and I will focus on the But if you want to know hardware, I can actually teach you.
Great, thanks, man, Steve. I mean, we'll keep chatting about it.
Listen, guys, just one note. This is a note. The guys who are talking about software and they're kind of iffy about the hardware part, I promise you, if you get one of these devices and you sit down and you write a piece of software that makes an LED light, or make a move or a servo move around, I promise you, the first time that happens, you will be hooked. And I promise you.
Yeah, I got the light link. I reached out.
More and more of it. So I'm not going to listen to this thing about, I'm a software guy. Once it happens once.
Oh, no. I'm not myopic with IT. I am on all ends. It's just, you have to prioritize, because this is one of the projects.
No, listen, I'm not suggesting you. I'm just saying that the standard I think you may mention about that can be in hardware and whatnot.
No, I said what I said, Sanford, is that what we should do is the guys that like into this kind of thing, to run a separate hangout, invite other people who might be into it, and let's get the communities going. Let's get that chain reaction kind of thing going.
I understand, but I'm going to send you a Raspberry Pi. I'm going to get you hooked.
I prefer Apple personally, but okay.
Right, but yeah, here's what you can send me. This is what I want. This is what I'm accepting from you guys. You guys can send me the PC boards for Western Digital hard drives, so I can see if I can repair some of these hard drives I have here that the controller for the drive motor has burnt out.
How did that happen?
Well, it turns out I have a motherboard that apparently has some components that fail, and when it has more than one hard drive, that's the end of that.
Maybe it's time to get a new motherboard?
Unfortunately.
Hey guys, it was nice. I have to head out.
Alright, man, you've been saying that for an hour and 20 minutes, so we appreciate it.
I just realized the time. I was like, it was such a good conversation.
That's what I said, we appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the
Thanks for coming out.
What was the name again? I didn't get the name. Nissan?
Yeah, Steve, add me back onto the Google Plus thing, and we can chat about this other stuff afterwards.
Do a hangout, share it with the world. You guys, do a hangout.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Okay, I
okay.
do it. I do it.
All
What,
right, cool,
one,
man.
listen, before you leave, the one thing
Yeah.
I recommend, I would love to see throughout the Caribbean is a hacker space in at least one hacker space in each island.
All right, so I'm going to let you guys in on a little something. I'm working on a few things right now, business-wise as well as community-wise. I don't speak about things I can't back. Something along that line is one of those things. If it bears fruit, I'll talk to Stanford about it.
Hey, okay, I'm very
Cool,
much
man.
interested.
All
Yeah,
right, cool.
hackerspace in Haiti.
All right,
All
guys.
right, guys.
Have a good night.
Bye, Nissan. Take care.
Bye.
Take it.
On that note, guys, it's been quite a while. I'd like to wrap up the Hackers
Yeah,
Hangout.
it's been
It's
a good
been a
one.
lot of fun. Yeah, it's been a good one. Unfortunately, Shannon has not come back. I'd like him to come back. The other guys as well, they look like they headed out. But honestly, I think
Sana,
I have to hurt myself.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I have another meeting.
Sana,
No problem.
Sana.
Hey, whoops, 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 whoops. One person at a time. One person at a time, people.
All right, good
Sana.
night.
Oh, jeez.
Sound like Jesse. Sana. Wait, that's not Jesse.
Yeah.
Shannon said he couldn't get in the room because the room was full, boy.
Serious?
He sent a message in the Hangout chat just now. He said the room was full, yes?
Oh yeah, it's a 10-person limit. I mean, what I was going to say is honestly, Stanford, Steve, everybody here, Calvin, these guys in Barbados, at least from what I've been seeing, they seem to be getting that you know, I would say community aspect of the thing going, and I'd like for them to share more about what's going on over there because I suspect that they're in Jamaica
They're number one in 19 in the Caribbean, dog, Barbados.
has some examples that they could share with us on how more of these things could get going. But really nice stuff, and I like the fact that there are people here from all over the place, different backgrounds, that kind of thing. So thank you all for coming out.
Well, I'll just say that I missed out on a great discussion because when I tuned in, I heard you all was discussing about the open source business and stuff, and I was like, damn, why should I reach earlier?
What was that?
I was like, why should I reach
Stop
earlier?
it!
It was a good,
I'll meet you. You stop it.
it was a really good discussion because I overheard, and I have a lot of
Hello?
It's
yeah.
gone.
You go bye-bye.
The NSA came in and disconnected him.
Jesse, you bring life to this hangout.
Yeah.
You bring life. You bring life to these hangouts, honestly. I don't think we could ask for a more fun individual. I think Jesse, I think you're like what, 19 years old, something like that.
No, I'm 20 now. Today is my birthday.
Wow, you're just making me feel old.
Happy birthday, man.
Yes, thanks, man.
I
Happy
don't
birthday,
like
young
how
man.
you're so young and interested in this kind of stuff. Everybody here is more or less an old goat. No
No,
offense,
yeah, we
everyone.
should need to get some
I
more
don't know about
sticks in
that
the roll
game, man.
inside
I
here.
don't know about that old thing.
Hey,
Sticks in the roll hacker or something else.
Oh yeah, Kester, you young too. Right. He's a young goat, Kester.
Steve,
Mm-hmm.
how old are you, man?
40. I'm
Oh,
not
Lord. Lord, it's still the oldest one. Jeez. Still the oldest one.
You don't sound very old.
That's all right. Seniority.
Technology keeps us young, man. Technology
That's right.
keeps us young. Because when I tell people about, the 5 1/4 inch, like,
Oh,
who
God.
here knows what 5 1/4 inch is?
I wouldn't tell a girl that. That's not very impressive, but that's a different story.
Guys.